Hi, and welcome back to the 12th episode of the Pathfinders podcast. We have a special episode for you today as we have two different interviewees with the voice actors of the popular video game Apex Legends. These are two separate interviews that will be split across two parts in today's episode. The first part features an interview with Chris Edgerly, the voice actor behind the character Pathfinder. The second part of today's interview features Johnny Young, the voice actor behind the character Crypto. Combined, both of these voice actors have done a lot of work across the video game and entertainment industry. Both of these creators have taken to the streaming platform Twitch to engage with and grow their audiences even further outside of the characters that they play. Chris also has his own podcast where he sits down and talks with voice actors across the industry, whereas Johnny also has been involved with other acting projects outside of being just a voice actor. This is a very exciting episode that not only looks at Apex Legends, but also the voice acting industry and how it is people can break into this and make a career for themselves. It also looks like that through these interviews we've conducted, we've almost arranged a physical challenge between these two as well, so be sure to listen out to that. Before we get into today's issue, if you would like to support the podcast, then the best way to do so is by visiting the 99% Lifestyle store. We actually have a site-wide sale going on right now with discounts across most of our products. So if you're yet to pick up a copy of our print magazine, a print or a t-shirt, then now is the perfect time to do so. Okay, let's get into today's episode and start part 1 with Chris Edgerly. I suppose just a nice way to start things off, could you give people a quick introduction to who you are and what you do if they don't already know what you do?
Yeah, hi, I'm Chris Edgerly. I'm a voice actor, and for the past 11 seasons, I've appeared in various teeny tiny roles on The Simpsons, and I am Pathfinder in Apex Legends, the Battle Royale, massive multiplayer online game. And over the course of my career, I've done video games, animation, stuff for movies and TV, commercials, you name it, that's what I do.
And how is it you got into voice acting? What made you want to become a voice actor?
Basically, ever since I was a kid, I discovered I had the ability to mimic and to manipulate my voice and create characters. So I was entertaining my brothers with my voices and my little cutting up, just to make them laugh. Then I expanded that outwards to friends and then classmates. And then I was still sometimes kind of the shy kid who would hang back a little bit. It would come in waves. I'd be confident, I'd be a little more shy. And by the time I got into college, I had a friend say, you really should consider stand-up comedy. And I had thought about it. And when I was I believe I was a junior in college, is the first time I tried stand-up comedy. And that was back in 1990. It's a long time ago. I'm old. And I loved it. And the crowd responded well. And I would say for about 10 years after college, I was a touring comedian. That's what I did professionally. I worked a lot of voices into my act. And I got tired of being on the road because I was on the road quite a bit, more than 6 months a year. And I was getting burned out. And I was able to transition into voice acting with the help of a couple of producers in the industry who were making theme park rides. And I had done voices for a couple of them. They got me a meeting with an agent, and she is to this day still my agent, Pat Brady. And she was at a smaller agency. She took me and some others to a larger agency, CESD, and all of them have been great. And I would say since 2000, I've been a voice actor, but since about 2002, 2003, it's been pretty much, since '03 for sure, it's been all I do. So it's a slow process.
And it must be I suppose it was very different back then to now as well, but I suppose voice acting is quite a difficult industry to get into as well. This was going to be one of the questions I was going to ask further down the line, but because this is
right.
Quite naturally, is how do people get into voice acting now? Because I do have a couple of friends that actually was looking to get into this as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, by the way, everyone has a couple of friends who are looking to get into it. Who doesn't want to do it? It's a fun job. You don't have to dress up. I mean, I'm talking to you wearing compression pants and a t-shirt from my workout. I just put a hat on, that's all. But people think that it's just having an interesting voice or just kind of talking in an interesting way. voice acting is acting. It's just using your voice, but you use your entire body when you voice act. I use body language to help sell the character. Even if the person hearing it is not seeing me move, they're getting the performance that results in me using everything I have. And to have a performing background helps. You don't have to, but if you're going to be a voice actor, you need to know how to act. And some people are naturals. Other people require more training, but everybody should exercise at their craft. They should work at their craft. They should basically learn how to do it. And there are no end of resources out there. So to, in a roundabout way, answer your question, there are a lot of ways in, but I'll tell you who has the most exhaustive resource for that is D. Bradley Baker. He is one of the legends in voice acting, and he's always busy, and he's very talented, but he also works at it. And he has a website he set up called iwanttobeavoiceactor.com. And if you have a question on voice acting and how to get in and how to get better once you are in, that's the website to go to. But long story short, work at your craft, put together a demo, and the demo needs to be good, but it's not going to be the only thing that determines it for you, because an agent, which is what you will most likely need. I know that these days you can submit independently to a lot of independent casting services, but it's probably going to be for non-union work. And that's a different animal than the union work that I do. And a savvy agent is going to appreciate your demo, but they're going to want to see how you do with auditions. They're going to give you copy and say, okay, read it this way. Okay, that was good. Now read it this way. Now try it this way, that way. They want to see if you can take direction. They want to see if you can create on the fly, if you can improv. All of these things are tools that you need in your kit. If you need to be a person from, let's say, the Midlands, as opposed to someone from, let's say, Essex, you know, in your worldview, you would say, okay, that's a different person right there. They're going to sound different. They may even behave a little differently. I may not know how to make that distinction. So I'd have to learn, but you might be able to flip a switch. But that's what a director may ask you to do. So I know I'm all over the place here, but I'm trying to give the impression that you don't just step right into it and start working. That's extremely rare. Some very gifted individuals have done that. But for the most part, you better know your stuff.
Mm. And obviously the project which I discovered you from is Apex Legends. Was that game through an agent, was it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, you'll find that pretty much every actor in that game, and probably going forward as well, I don't want to speak for them, but they're all going to have agents. They're all going to be people that have worked consistently in the business. They're seasoned actors. And in this case, yes, the way it typically works is the agency will send you copy, or auditions is another way we like to put it. They send it through email, and then you get it, you know, if you're lucky, and I'm lucky, you get it on a daily basis. And even when there are days where I don't get anything, the day before I might have had 5 things to read for. So you get your copy, you take your time with it, make sure you're comfortable, and then you give your audition using your home setup. And I've got a pretty nice home setup, even though I'm in an Airbnb right now because we're, you know, looking at buying a property, so we're just renting. I was able to create inside of a walk-in closet the acoustic atmosphere I needed to continue to record professionally. So I've got my same software, my same hardware, and I've just acoustically treated the environment of my microphone. So I send in the auditions, they to the agency, they submit them, and they let me know if I have a callback or a job that I've booked. And in the case of Apex, it was 2 years ago, more than 2 years ago. It was 2.5 years ago, probably. And it was just something I read with like 5 other things that day. I didn't think anything of it. I thought, oh, okay, here's the character. It's the breakdown, is the description of what they think the character should be like. Use your best imagination. That's what I did. I got a call back. I went in and did it for them in person and booked it. And then we started recording not long after that.
Mm. And did it take you long to come up with the voice for Pathfinder? Because I think I listened to one of your podcasts actually where you interviewed some of the other voice actors, and you used a show. I forgot the name of the show, but you took inspiration from a character on a show with an English accent, didn't you?
I very well might have. I can't remember what I would have been talking about at the time, because that might have been over a year ago. But I remember looking at the breakdown, thinking, okay, nice personality on the robot here. He is very, very super positive. He's also kind of oblivious, and he's gentle, and at the same time, he's a robot in a death match, so he'll dispatch you and then joke with you about it and not realize that he's being cruel. So I thought, okay, just sort of a babe in the woods kind of attitude about him. And I had done an AI voice for a movie called Passengers with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence. And Pathfinder is sort of a descendant of that AI voice. And Pathfinder is a bit more energetic and a bit more clueless, but the AI voice was sort of the godfather of that. And that movie had come out, I think, the year before I read for Apex. And I'd watched my performance and saw how it fit in with the rest and saw how the characters responded to that voice. And I thought, okay, yeah, maybe if I take it a little bit farther for this. So I built on something I'd already done before.
That's really interesting. And I'd also like to know what has been the fan reaction to your work on this. Have you ever experienced something like the Project Apex in terms of, I suppose, growing more of the personal brand with it?
I was just coincidentally enough, last night I jumped on and played. I usually try and play a little bit every night just for fun. And I just get in with randos. I don't tell anybody who I am. They don't know who I am. I get into a party of one, so I don't hear anybody talk, and I don't talk to them. And I saw that Johnny Young, who's Crypto, was on, and I saw that Ashley Reed, one of the writers, was on, and they were in a party together, and I invited them both, and we jumped into a party, and we chatted while we played. It was just very impromptu. And I said that it's funny. I've done over 100 games over the last almost 20 years, and I have never experienced a game like this that continues to grow and evolve. Now, more and more games are made this way these days. Back in 2002, they didn't make games like this. They didn't have the capability. They made games with sequels, and they grew the universe of that game slowly through sequels. But this is a game that does not need a sequel because its very essence is a living, breathing thing. And I have, as a consequence, never encountered a fan base like that, because people respond to the work you did that one day in the studio or that 2 or 3 days in the studio, and that's it. You're left with that forever, and it's preserved in amber. This is every season. There's something new for them to respond to. Your character grows. So they don't tell your character's entire story all at once. It's taking years, and I actually love that. And as far as, yes, the brand goes, I am no longer streaming on Twitch. I wanted to spend more time with my family. My wife and I homeschool, and more specifically, she does the work. I help out when I can. But I did for about 1.5 years. I streamed regularly. I mean, every single week since about July of 2019, I streamed. I mean, I don't think I missed a week, including holidays. I was on 2-3 days a week, sometimes more, and it was exhausting, but it did very successfully grow awareness of who I was and what I did for a living. And in a tiny way, maybe it brought a few people on board with the game, but I think it was more the game discovering me than me allowing people from the outside world in. But I did open the door a little bit on voice acting itself, because I would bring on other voice actors, not just from the game, but from other projects. And the brand I wanted to create that I sort of, it's not really on pause. It's just that I don't have a streaming persona. I don't have a streaming presence right now. So any presence I have is from the YouTube videos that I've already banked that people can see anytime, and from the occasional Twitter activity I have. But the persona I built was basically me. I mean, I'm a dad. I'm bald, so I wear a flat cap because it's the only cool way to be bald is to put a hat on, unless you just have that tough look. I don't really have that smooth, tough guy look either. So I thought, all right, it's hat time. But no, from what I kept hearing from people that would watch my stream is I'm wholesome. So I'm the wholesome dad who, tries to play video games and is terrible at them. And it's true, I am. And I'm open to having, different personalities and opinions brought my way. And I try to get along with everybody. So in that sense, the game itself is what got me into that world. And it definitely was the motivating factor.
Yeah, brilliant. And looking as well at, I suppose, your continuous work on the game, like you said, it is a constantly living, breathing game, and it requires, I suppose, ongoing content as well. How often are you working on this? Is it a case where, like, you're given a week in a month, every couple of months to do, or are you in constant communication with the team every week to do work for them?
It's not every week because they need time. They need prep time to get the seasons ready. They're usually 3 to 4 seasons ahead, if not more than that, in just prepping things at different stages. But I will record something new for every season. And then sometimes there are mid-season events that I may or may not be a part of. And then there are the trailers that you'll see, or the short films, the little featurettes. And so each one of us will have a different role to play in that, depending on the season, depending on what it centers around. Like this past season has a lot of Fuse in it because that's the new character. Before then, there was a Pathfinder event where the boxing ring, which I think is still there, but we haven't seen World's Edge in a bit. Or let's see, it's right now it's World's Edge, and they've brought back King's Canyon, or no, not World's Edge, it's Olympus. Yeah. So the boxing ring is on Olympus. World's Edge we haven't seen in a while. I'm not sure what's going to become of that, but they are always turning over new soil and introducing just new ideas, new lines for us to do. Usually they'll give us a few days before they say, okay, we're going to record on this day. You'll get your script in advance. And I would say it averages out to a couple of times every season I'm doing something.
Yeah. And I suppose something you mentioned just is that Pathfinder got his town takeover. So I suppose you had a lot more voice lines maybe to record for that event.
Right.
And how did that affect your overall performance, having, I suppose, this almost like this big, vast amount of story added to the character all of a sudden? Because I suppose that really maybe helped you out, maybe?
They always drop hints about what Pathfinder's story is, but they don't tell me because Pathfinder does not know his story. His whole story was trying to find out information. So they never told me who his creator is. And finally, Manny, who is pretty much the head writer for Pathfinder, once told me, and I instantly forgot it because I had other things on my mind. So I knew ahead of the lore book coming out what his story was, and it just went right through my head, and I was back to thinking about something else. And so it helps to be in the same frame of mind as the character because, any actor will tell you this. If you know what's going to happen to your character before the character knows it, you have to block that out while you're giving the performance. You don't want to tip anything off. It's better to be in the same headspace as much as possible within reason. And in my case, I certainly felt the weight of new information and new storylines as I was recording it, but it was a good thing because it allowed maybe that little scintilla of emotion to get into Pathfinder's voice. We would have discussions about that. Would he be emotional about this? What is Pathfinder's version of emotion? He can certainly feel happy. So would he feel anything else? So there were these little discussions about it. And I think people see Pathfinder as more than just a robot as a result of the way his story has progressed. Certainly the lore book is not hurt.
Yeah. And that's I suppose one of the key things to, I suppose, the success of the game is how character-based it is. They all have their own personalities, and like I said, it's not just a robot. There's a personality attached to that and a character depth as well. And what would you say has been your most, I guess, humbling response or most positive experience since working with Apex?
I would say the community's response, and I think everyone who works on the game would tell you that. And there's always somebody who is upset about some feature of the game. But last night I got pissed off because I'm playing and I'm thinking, this game is unplayable. Everybody's better than me. And I just thought, well, okay, but they've put in the time to get better. So if you put in the time, you'll do better at the game. But yeah, and there are always toxic players. I don't think there are that many in this world that I've come across, but they're there, sure. But as far as overall, this community, overwhelmingly positive. And the fact that people tell me that they love seeing themselves in a character and they'd never seen that before, that's touching to hear. And it's not something I spend a whole lot of time thinking about because a lot of roles are written for people like me, and that's not really the rest of the world. I'm just a tiny part of it. And so you begin to see, I mean, my wife is a woman of color, so I have over the past 12, 13 years had a much broader view of life through her. But working with these other great actors, I realized that they are the ones who are really representative of the rest of the gaming community through their characters. And they get to hear this a lot. I don't have many robots dial me up and tell me how they love seeing themselves in the game, but you can bet Allegra Clark does, and Mela Lee does, and Branscombe Richmond does, and let's see, who else? I mean, we've got too many to mention almost. I mean, even Benjamin with Fuse is hearing from people saying, oh, a character that is now identifying as pansexual, that's not something I had seen before. And let's see, I'm gonna go down the list because I want to make sure I don't leave anybody out. Erica Luttrell, obviously, Justine Huxley, because they've talked about Watson's character being on the autism spectrum. And there are a lot of gamers that are aware that they are also on the spectrum, and they don't feel like they always get represented well in games. And the game has actually listened to that community's input and tweaked the way that they will communicate. So long story short, yes, the fan engagement, the community's engagement with the makers of the game and we, the actors of the game, engaging with them has been easily the most rewarding.
And I'm guessing you're extremely excited to carry on working on this for what the future holds for the game as well.
Oh, sure. I love the fact that they've not put a cap on it. They haven't said, here's when we're going to end the game. They're not thinking in those terms. They're thinking of, okay, how much would we like to grow this universe? I hope that, just like the universe itself, continues to expand, because I saw Star Wars when I was 8 years old. It came out in 1977, and I was 8 years old. I saw it in the theater. And you could have ended that movie right there, and I would have thought, that's the greatest movie I've ever seen. And yet George Lucas always had 9 movies planned. It took him forever to get there, but he had always planned on telling a 9-part story. Well, they accomplished that, but the universe continues to expand. And I think any great idea can bear that. And so I think Apex is definitely a story that can continue to expand. They just mentioned online the other day that they're going to have a comic book. I thought, great, what a great way to continue to tell stories.
Yeah, I suppose it's expanding into different mediums, isn't it? It's not just in like an interactive phase of just digital interactivity. It's taken it into a different space. And what's it been like working as a voice actor during lockdown? How has that differed from your traditional setup before working in lockdown?
The difference for me is the commute. That's the standing joke, the running joke we have is, oh, the commute's a lot easier. And it is. There are a handful of actors out there that will go into a studio if it's been properly prepped. I'm not one of them. I don't want to take any chances. My wife is a heart attack survivor, and I have 2 young kids. And I may get it, and maybe I could shake it off. Or who knows, maybe I'd have a problem if I did have it. I don't know if that would be my wife's experience or my kids. So I play it very, very safe. And when we get vaccinated, which we will, first opportunity, I will be happy to go into a studio if they insist. But the way it changed for me is I did exactly one thing differently I got Source Connect, which is an app that allows you to connect with any studio in the world. It's not cheap, but for a working pro, it's necessary. It's mandatory. So I got that literally the day before I worked my very first remote job a year ago. I think it was on March 15th. And I already had a professional booth at home for auditions. So all I had to do was get the app and get it set up on my laptop, and everything continued for me. I did not lose a single job, very fortunately for me, knock on wood. If anything, I worked more because I was more available. I didn't have a commute getting in the way of one job or the other. I had jobs scheduled within 15 minutes of each other sometimes that I wouldn't have been able to make happen. So for me, I did not miss a beat, and I realized how extraordinarily lucky I am to be in a business that allows that, because I had family and friends around me who saw their worlds come to a complete halt. So for voice actors, many of us have had to get creative with the space. Like I said, I was lucky I had a space already devoted to it, but the Apex actors, some of them just went right into their closets and set up a laptop and a microphone, and it worked out great.
Mm. And you're in communication with a lot of voice actors, I take it, as well. You have a podcast where you actually chat with other voice actors as well. What made you want to start a podcast on that topic?
Actually, I just enjoyed the hang. I enjoyed talking with them, and I thought it would be fun. And it's something I think I have a skill set for. Is just I find people inherently interesting, and I'm pretty good at just getting people comfortable and just chatting, because my interviews are not really interviews, they're hangouts. And we get around to asking questions and to talking about different things, but it's through the lens of just a relaxing chit chat. And I just enjoyed it. And that's another thing I haven't done in a while, because I needed to take a break. And once we get into our house finally and get set up, however long that takes, then I think I'll be able to take a breath and finally maybe get started back creating some content. But yeah, the reason why I started interviewing the colleagues in my industry is just because I really enjoyed it.
Hmm. And out of the many episodes you've done, what would you say has been, I suppose, if you had to highlight something that you've learned from one of those conversations that's perhaps impacted your own life, what was it and why?
I've learned something from every conversation, because anytime you talk to anybody, there's an opportunity to learn something, even if it's something you already knew, but you've had it reinforced through the experience of another. So I don't know if I could single out any one thing, but every time I get to talk to somebody who is in the same business that I'm in, but came to it from a different walk of life, I feel like I've walked away with an appreciation for what I do, because it fills out that world a bit more. And there are so many different opinions in the world. I mean, actors in general, we're creative types, and we tend to be a little bit more on the left end of the spectrum, politically speaking. But within that end of the spectrum, and not all of us, I've interviewed a couple of friends that are a bit more right, and it doesn't matter, we had a great conversation. But within that world, you realize there's still infinite variations, because there are so many different opinions. And one of the things I've always tried to embrace is a variety of opinions. And so I typically never really challenged anybody on their beliefs as much as I simply got them talking about them, so I could hear what they had to say and understand where they were coming from. I wasn't interested in creating a combative atmosphere. I could do that. I could create a podcast where I bring on somebody from a different walk of life or a different point of view and make it into a debate. And you can do that in a way that's respectful and courteous, but I'm just not interested in that. I would rather, through a much friendlier vibe, get someone to talk about where they're coming from in life. And hopefully somebody listening will gain an appreciation. Even if they don't agree, there's a chance to have some sort of connection there.
Mm. Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's something which I suppose I've learned from this podcast as well. It's just born from, I suppose, a curiosity of trying to learn from other people, and it doesn't matter what walk of life they're from. I think there's something to be gained from all those conversations you've had. And I suppose this is something that I've probably only learned in the last few years as well.
Yeah. And I guess I should clarify too. I never had anyone say anything unconscionable. on my podcast. Otherwise, I would have challenged them on it, because I hate when I hear somebody letting a lunatic just rant and rave and they say, well, I just want to hear both sides. Sometimes the other side is nuts and you should just call it out. But I never really heard that from anyone. I was also careful about who I brought on. I could have sought out a lunatic just for the sheer entertainment value of it, but there's no way that I could have let them go on and on without challenging them. And so in my case, if I heard something that I might not have agreed with, I was careful to realize, yeah, but they're not, they're not bonkers. They're just simply coming at it from a different point of view. I don't feel a need to challenge here. I would rather keep asking questions and be Socratic about it. But, not that he knows who I am, but I wouldn't exactly have Alex Jones on my podcast without saying, I just wouldn't have him on, because there's no conversation happening there. It's wind up this toy and watch it go crazy around your room.
Yeah, I totally understand that. And
Yeah.
moving back onto Apex, I know you're sworn to secrecy and you probably can't say anything, but is there
Yeah.
something about Apex that a lot of people don't know, perhaps that you are able to share?
Well, if they don't know it, it's because they're not required to know and they're not allowed to know, which means if I share it, I get in huge trouble. So, yeah, I can only give the standard answer because I've signed an NDA like we all have, and that is keep watching, because the game is not going to stand still. You will continue to be surprised. You will watch the characters continue to grow, and the world will continue to expand. And that's the way any good story should be. It's a living, breathing thing. So keep watching, because it's going to continue.
Mm. And just to close off this interview, I had a couple of questions at the end just for some quick recommendations for your favorite. But one of the last ones I wanted to ask you is, you played with, as you mentioned, some of the other voice actors. If you had to pick out who the best people were on Apex skill-wise, who is it voice actor-wise?
I mean, I think it's a pretty easy answer. I think Ben and Johnny are the best. Most of the others don't play. I mean, they'll play a little. Like Allegra's got on and played, but she plays other games more on her stream. I've gotten Roger Craig Smith on to play with me. And, he's not bad for somebody who never plays, but he's like me. He can get frustrated at how difficult the game is and how better everyone else is. So of the handful that play, clearly, if I was going to squad up, I would choose Johnny and Ben, and we'd have a fighting chance.
If there's a question I was to ask Johnny, what would you like to ask him?
Oh, geez, let me think. Ask him how many pull-ups he can do now. That's the running joke, is that he was letting himself get out of shape, and he's got a great friend he plays with who is a trainer. And so he's gotten Johnny back in shape, because Johnny is a fit guy. He's done martial arts and sparring for years. So I wouldn't want to step in a ring with him, but he admits he got soft. And so he's getting himself back in shape. And the running joke with me is that even though I'm a dad, but I'd like to keep myself fit. So I'm at it 5 days a week. And so he started to be able to get some real pull-up action in. And I go, okay, I want to know how many you can do now, brother. Maybe when the pandemic lifts, maybe we'll have to have a pull-up contest.
So this is the halfway point of today's episode. Before we get into part 2, just a quick reminder that you can follow us on social media on @99%lifestyle on Instagram to keep updated with all new articles, blog posts, and podcast episodes. You can also check out our website and also our email newsletter too. All of that can be found on our website or via social media. Okay, now let's get into part 2 with Johnny Young. I guess just to get things started, do you want to give people a quick introduction to who it is you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Johnny Young. I am an actor, on camera, theater, film, television. But you guys probably know me as a voice actor in the game Apex. I play Crypto in Apex Legends. I voice Crypto in Apex Legends, as well as Mingy in Infinity Train, Taeyeon in Overwatch, Show in World War Z, and a slew of other characters.
And how is it you got into voice acting? Is this something you've always wanted to pursue as a kid, or is this something you've only fallen into recently?
Yeah, I fell into it recently. I mean, compared to the rest of the cast, I'm relatively new. You know, I've been acting for about 18 years now, 18, 19 years now. And I've primarily done theater, television, and film. And that was sort of like my thing. And then when I was an actor out of work, which happens, you know, which happens a lot. I was sitting. I've been a gamer all my life, and on my free time, I would game. And I had a friend, a good friend, Charlotte Chung, who voices Diva in Overwatch. She was my reader at one point at an ABC showcase audition, which was diversity showcase audition. So every year, the big networks in America they hold a huge like diversity showcase. And, ABC, CBS, NBC, these huge networks. Essentially, it's like American Idol, but without the cameras. And they narrow down 5,000 actors down to about, I don't remember the exact number, but it was like 12 or 16. And she had in the previous year, she had been one of the finalists and she became my reader. And I didn't make it to the finals, unfortunately, but she, you know, she was rooting for me, and she's like, we need more actors like you. And I was like, oh, thank you. Fast forward, I'm sitting on my couch jobless and I'm playing Overwatch and Black Ops 3, and I see her Instagram, and she's like, oh, you know, she's like posting. I'm like, oh my god. I call her immediately and I congratulate her. I text her, and I'm like, that's such a big deal. You know, I would love to somehow be a part of that. And she like called me immediately and had like a 3-hour conversation with me, and then eventually walked me into her agency. And I was like, I can do this. Like I can bring, you know, breathe life into these characters. And I'm a huge gamer. I just never thought to combine acting and video games together. And then the first year, no work. And then soon after that, I got World War Z, and then Overwatch, and then um, I think a couple other things, and then Apex Legends, and then Infinity Train. So I've been great. I've been blessed, and I'm very grateful and thankful.
Mm, yeah, yeah. And I take it it's quite essential in this industry to be a part of an agency in order to get some of these projects to work on.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to say there's no way, but you mean it's the agencies and the managers are pretty much like the gateway guys. They're sort of like the filters to the casting directors. Essentially, the agencies will vouch for you, and they have a reputation, and they have a relationship with these casting directors or production companies, and they will pitch you to them and or submit you and also negotiate. So agencies are the only ones that can legally negotiate. But yeah, you need them in order to book like just jobs in general.
Mm. And do you think you would have been able to get with that agency had you not had that prior connection? Is that something that's very overlooked, that having these personal connections is a big deal in order to get past some of these gatekeepers sometimes?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no way I would have been able to walk. And at the time I was so new, I didn't know that my agent was he was well known, and I was just like, oh, you know, because I was in the theater, film, television, and theater world. So yeah, I mean, she vouched for me, and on top of that, she was like you know, she was a big character in a game. So I'm sure that's why they took a meeting with me. Relationships are a must. I mean, they are. I don't want to say must, but it's like they're extremely important because, you know, it's just like, you know, if your car broke down, or if your toilet broke, or you know, if you're buying a new mic or something, you know, you usually ask people you trust, and they recommend you to whoever, and usually word of mouth and experience is the best. So I mean, essentially, if I was like, you know, driven enough, you know, like I was as an actor, like a you know, on camera actor, I'm sure I would have eventually got there. But she had significantly cut my time down by I don't even know, I can't even tell you, but probably years.
Mm.
um yeah.
And how many projects in was it with this agency that you came to work on Apex?
I'm sorry, how many projects?
So how many projects had you previously done
Oh, I
voice
see.
acting before working with Apex?
Like two. I had no resume. Like she walked me in. I had no resume. I'd never done voice acting before. Well, that's not true. I'd worked on my friend's like I guess student films as a kid because he wanted to be a director growing up, and we didn't have like money to build these big set pieces. So we did it. It was a thing called machinima back in the day. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Ah, yeah, I've heard of that.
yeah, pretty much in-game cinematics, and that's what he does for a living now. But as kids, we didn't know what to do, and so that's what we did. And so I kind of like messed around with that with him, anyways. But walking into the agency, I had no experience, like pretty much professionally, and they were like, but I was like, it was sincerely, I was like, I can do this. And I was like talking with them, with the agents in the room. And I was extremely knowledgeable about video games as well. I knew more than they did,
Mm.
because I was just like, that's what I did on my free time. I researched games, and I couldn't wait for like the Division to come out, or like I was extremely for like Anthem to come out when it was, coming out, and Titanfall and Call of Duty, and I sort of knew the genres and everything. So they took a shot. They gave me a shot pretty much, but yeah, I had no experience.
Mm.
Sorry. To answer your question, I had done two projects. So I'd done World War Z after I signed with them, and then I had done the Overwatch short, and then I booked Apex Legends.
Okay. And was
Sorry for that long-winded
no,
answer.
no, don't worry. That makes perfect sense. So was Apex, and obviously you voice Crypto, who was, I think, the second character that got introduced after the initial launch.
Third.
Oh, was it the third character?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So how long? So when, I suppose, how long had the game been out before you became part of the project, or was they that far back that you was a part of Apex before the game had even come out?
No, here's the crazy part. I'm a huge fan of Titanfall. I think everybody at Respawn knows this, and everyone on my streams know this. But um, I essentially, short answer, I joined a year after, like about a year in, and that's when I started my recording. But I was playing the game before I got cast,
Oh wow.
and I was a huge fan of like Respawn and their games, like Titanfall 1 and 2. I bought my Xbox because it was an exclusive at launch. I played the crap out of Titanfall 2. I knew Vince's career, the CEO of Respawn, like him creating Call of Duty and Medal of Honor and all that. And so like I knew. And so like when I got the audition and I walked in, I was like literally to like the team, I was like, guys, I know what this is. And then they're just like, okay, get in the booth. And I was like, okay. But yeah, it was about a year in.
I'm guessing that it was difficult to keep that quiet with your friends if you was playing with friends on this game.
Oh my God. So so I had a group of friends who we all played Apex, and I had just gotten cast, and I was not very good at the game, and they pretty much carried me, and they were like, oh man, and I had one buddy. So he was like, man, I have this theory for season 3. I think he's a Korean legend. And like, he was telling me about like the leaks and stuff. I'm like, oh bro, I have no idea, man. Like, I just pretended like I had no interest. It was hard. I think I kept it in for like close to like 8 months or something like that. And I couldn't tell him. And he was like trying to, decipher everything. And eventually, like when my character got announced, I was like, guys, we're playing Apex Legends. I was like, by the way, I'm Crypto. And they're like, what? It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's pretty nuts. I suppose it might have took a bit convincing that you was telling the truth for a bit.
Actually, no, like they believed me immediately because they knew I was an actor. So
Wow.
yeah. It was a lot of fun. And then like after that, like I like tweeted, hey guys, I'm Crypto. And then like nothing. That's when I like started to first tweet on Twitter, and
Mm.
then no response. And then Respawn tweets out Johnny Young is, and then just like a tsunami of like people just started to like comment, and it was crazy.
That is pretty crazy. And I suppose after that initial launch, what has the response been like to work on this project compared to I suppose, your previous work? Has it been pretty nuts?
It's been pretty insane. Yeah, it's incomparable. You know, as an actor growing up, I grew up watching movies, and I've always wanted to be, want to be like James Bond or Batman. Those are obviously my two favorites, but um, you know, I always thought maybe I'd book a role on television or film, and it would happen that way. But after booking crypto, it was like I didn't realize how. I mean, I knew the game was big, but I didn't realize how big. Because I was a player, but I just didn't know the community, and the response has been overwhelming. Handwritten letters, like daily fan art, messages, like so much so that I can't go through all of them. People joining me on stream and YouTube, and me being able to you know play with these content creators for Apex, and being a part of the cast as well. Like they are phenomenal. I've never been a part of any project, maybe one theater group where we kind of keep in touch, but even them, like not like maybe two of them I keep in touch with. But this project, it's like we all have like a group chat. We fart around together on messages. We roast each other. We have Zoom drinks. We've had in-person drinks and coffee dates and hikes, and we all hang out. We try to help each other. And to be a part of a group of like veterans like this is pretty insane. Roger's voices Batman and Sonic and Ezio, and Chattel's on, two the boys and For All Mankind. She's on like these television shows. Mella's like Jade, and Allegra's like on these all these anime shows and games, and Nick's and it's pretty insane. It's crazy. The experience has been overwhelmingly positive.
And that's something that Chris Edgerly also mentioned as well about the relationship is that some of you will even jump on to Apex and play together. I think he mentioned that yourself, him, and the guy who voices Mirage have jumped on in the past before.
Yeah, like Roger and Chris and I have jumped on a bunch. Recently, Ben Prendergast, who voices Fuse, we've jumped on. And Roger and Chris have been veterans of the voice acting game, and I do look up to them, and they've given me amazing advice, just behind the scenes, and honestly, we just mess around the whole time. It doesn't even feel like work. It's crazy, and I love those guys.
Yeah, and at the end of the interview I did with Chris, I asked him if there was a question he would like to ask you, and he simply wanted to know how many pull-ups that you could do, and mentioned that he might want to do a pull-up challenge with you at some.
Dude, I'm so down for this. Oh my God. See, back in the past, because Chris is really fit, right? I know Chris is fit, and so is Nick, and he challenged me to something online, and I couldn't do it. But recently, I've been working out, so I'm totally down for the pull-ups. I don't know how many I could do in a row, but the most I've done was 10 sets of 6. So that's 60. But that's over a course of like an hour and a half, do 6, rest, do 6, rest. So whatever challenge he wants to do, let's do it. Let's do it, buddy.
I know you'll have to broadcast that on Twitch.
Yeah. I think I will.
And going back to Apex, if you could single out, I suppose, a particular moment, what's been one of the most humbling responses that you've had from a fan since joining this project?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's so many, so many. I've had people say things from like, you saved my life, to you remind me of my father who passed, to I've had someone who wasn't sure if they were going to live any much longer, because of a situation that they had. So I had personally reached out and messaged them and said that they can do this, and my lines are open, and I personally messaged them daily, almost daily, or every other day, to make sure that they were okay, and they're doing fine. So things like that. I never thought in a million years that a character would be able to have that sort of impact on people, and it's insane. It's crazy in a good way.
Mm.
So things like that.
I suppose it just shows how connected and this community has become. I guess it's like an ongoing, constantly evolving, constantly developing game, but it brings with that a community that is also evolving and developing along with it as well, I guess.
Yeah, the community is extremely positive, overwhelmingly positive, from the content creators to the fans to the artists to everyone, and they get involved, and they see me, like all the voice actors, like just joke around online, and they're a part of it as well. And just thinking back on the recent announcement where there is 100 million players now, it's just that number doesn't even compute to me. And shortly after being cast as Crypto, not shortly after, but like I'd never gone to any of the conventions before, and I still haven't till this day because of the pandemic. But I can't imagine what it would be like to meet everybody, because that number just doesn't make sense in my head. Because like I'm in the studio all the time, and it's just like me and the engineer and the writers, and sometimes some of the devs. And maximum like on Zoom calls, it's like 6, 7, and that's all I see. So I can't imagine when real life happens, like what it's gonna be like.
I imagine there's going to be a moment where you're at a convention and you see people cosplaying your character, and it's going to be a special moment for you.
I'll probably cry like a little baby, like I did on my YouTube channel, just because just being touched by the community. It's so easy to, as a voice actor or actor, or entertainer, performer, whatever it is, to be on this side of the camera and to do what I do, and then just start and shut it off, like, because all I see is numbers, right? And sometimes I forget, like, each number is a person. um and it wasn't until they made me my birthday video that it really hit me. And it was just an overwhelmingly like feeling of emotions when I saw that, and I'm like, oh my god, I recognize that name, and I can put a face to that name now. But yeah, sorry, I ramble and like go off in like 9 different directions, so you
No,
gotta
no,
rein
no,
me
no,
in.
that's perfect. No, I love that. And obviously, it's been a big week for Apex. So as we're recording this, this is the week before the new season launches, and there's been a lot of announcements. I've actually been lucky enough to get some hands-on time with the new modes last week,
Nice.
and it's a very exciting time to be a part of this game. So how do you feel about the future of Apex? Because it's over 2 years old now, and there aren't many games that have a life cycle of 2 years, and Apex is probably stronger than when it's ever been in the past at the minute.
Yeah, you know what? That's so crazy, right? Like, me as a gamer too, like I completely understand what you're saying. I'm used to like The Last of Us or like God of War. You come out with this huge AAA title, uh, and then it makes a huge splash, and then you kind of
Mhm.
simmers down a bit, and then 3 years later you might have a sequel. And multiplayer games, that they usually have like a cycle of like 1 year,
Yeah,
like you were saying.
yeah, but
And it's insane to me that not only has the, like you said, the game grown like bigger than it ever has, but like it's just like I never thought in a million years. Like when I first went in for that session, I thought, okay, 1 session, I'm done. Call me in the next week, Johnny. We're booking you for like 3 times this week. Okay, cool. Just got to get through the script. Season 4, we're doing it again. Season 5, we're doing it again. Season 6, we're doing it again. I'm like, what is happening? Like, it's mind blowing to me, honestly. Just like the work as well, but like how the game is growing into its own thing, and like what Respawn has done for games. Like, they introduced, with Titanfall, so many different types of modes and gameplay mechanics, especially the movement. They bring that into Apex Legends. They bring the seasons like a television show into Apex. They bring the pinging system into Apex. They bring lore into a battle royale, and strengthen the lore, bringing out comic books and books and It's so crazy to me, man. And like you said, you previewed Season Legacy, but the trailers just get bigger and bigger and crazier. And like, I'm gonna go off on a limb here and just say it rivals like the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's so crazy to be a part of this. It's insane.
Yeah, and I think people do forget that how innovative that Respawn are, because obviously there's a ton of battle royales, but before Apex launched, there wasn't a pinging system in battle royales. There wasn't respawning, and that's something that you see in all of them now. But even, I suppose what excites me going forward is that with the arena modes that's launching,
Oh yeah.
Chad talked about how, they're just going to ship it, see what people's reactions is to it, and then they can develop on top of it. And it's a bit similar to how, when you look back at the battle royale when it first launched Apex, it was a very basic version of the game we actually have now, because there's been so much built on top of that. And I guess that could happen with arenas going forward as well.
I completely agree with you. And I love how the company just continues to innovate and push boundaries, even with the characters, right? Like, who would have thought, like, I would have never thought like a Korean spy tech specialist would, be a part of a game like this. And you have Bloodhound, who's non-binary. You have, like you have it covers all different, all the areas, right? Just the writers are tremendous in that way. But going back to the game, you're absolutely correct. They take chances, and they're not afraid to take chances. Most things work, some things don't, but they tweak. They're constantly tweaking. And like you said, the 3v3 arenas mode. Like, I think someone came on stream recently and was like, "Hey man, this is so cool. As a Valorant player, this is big for us." And I was like, "Holy crap!" I realized, oh my god, this mode alone can reach into like a different community of competitive play. And I mean, it's a game and it's all fun, but it was just really cool to hear that and see that.
Yeah, exactly. And I suppose it is more than a game when you hear the stories and people reaching out who it bleeds through into their actual lives and, can pull them through certain things.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah. And I suppose how I wanted to close off this interview, I've got a couple more questions I wanted to ask you, but
Sure, no problem.
is there anything that you'd like to share about Apex that perhaps a lot of people don't really know too much about, or it's not commonly known about the game?
Mm, oh, well, I want to tell people that um, everyone on the team, whether it's the writers or the actors or the devs, all really, really, really care, like, about the community and the game. Like, I know I've seen, things on Twitter, and I completely understand it. It's people get upset about certain things, and it's because they're passionate, right? And because if they didn't care, they wouldn't say anything about it. But I just want the community to know that the team works tirelessly, and we really, really, really do care about the game and what we bring to the game for everybody. Because if it wasn't for the players, there'd be no point of the game. So I just, we all do really care.
I hope you enjoyed listening to today's episode that was slightly different from normal. If you would like to follow us on social media, then all the links can be found on the 99% Lifestyle website. At the end of each interview I conduct, I ask interviewees to give 5 recommendations for our audience. This can be from books you should read, musicians you haven't heard of before, or other video games that you perhaps don't know exist. We send all of these recommendations out each and every week in our free weekly newsletter. The newsletter, called Creative Recommendations, is also archived, so if you want to look at all the previous issues, then you can find them all on our website. We actually have issues coming out in the future with Chris and also Johnny, so be sure to keep on the lookout for their issues soon. Again, if you don't want to keep checking our website and just have these recommendations sent to you each and every Friday, then just simply head over to the website, enter your email address, and then that's it. Thank you again for listening to today's episode. We'll be back very soon.